So, good morning. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday on the 10th of March 2021. Welcome to everyone who's watching this, wherever you're watching it, through In Control Scotland or through Citizen Network. So it's welcome from me and from...
It is a welcome from me as well, and it'll be a welcome with John and Fran as well, who will be joining us. So
they're gonna share some exciting news with us, aren't they, about a new paper that they've written and are launching today.
Yes, it's a double launch, isn't it? It's we should have a bottle of champagne. I think it's like a ship. Yeah, so we're launching the new routes.
Fizzy water, perhaps, Alistair. I mean, we can extend to some fizzy water.
Let's not get too excited. It's like I saw Robert Smith from The Cure in a clip when he was getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, and the American person who was interviewing him was going, "Oh, it's so exciting, isn't it? Are you as excited as I am?" And Robert Smith goes, "Clearly not."
Yeah.
And I thought, yes, let's keep our powder dry. So, but it's exciting stuff. It's stuff. And we've got a warm welcome from June's keeping us right to all our viewers, and our guests are John and Fran. So a new way home and new routes home. So both very linked. So we'll have a good chat together about that. So what else is new in the world of Keith this week?
Well, actually, I'm having my vaccination next week.
Yes, you got the blue letter.
I did. I got the blue letter. Yeah. Yes, I'm really pleased about that. And that probably links quite well with our next week's show as well, doesn't it, Alistair? Because we're going to have a conversation which focuses around about vaccination on next week's live stream. So,
because we've been having lots of debates, I suppose. June's been busy doing a lot of the vaccination and stuff to do with the COVID levels, over the last few months. We've discussed it in Feel Good Fridays, and we've discussed it here on Webinar Wednesdays as well. And so we're going to have some people's different experience of getting vaccinated and the information that people get as well, because it does seem that there's some good efforts out there to create accessible information and options to make sure that people can get a safe space, a quiet space if they need it, for example. But it's not necessarily reaching everyone. So just have a bit of a chat a bit about that. Seems to be a relevant time to do that.
Yeah, okay. And yesterday we had our Tuesday talk with Michael. Today I've been signing off the end of year accounts for In Control Scotland with the auditors, so that's all good. Tomorrow we're doing a bit of work with City of Edinburgh Council and individual service funds, following up on that work. So it's a normal week on Zoom, really.
It's a normal week on Zoom, yes.
On Zoom and Teams, sometimes on Teams, yeah.
Sometimes on Teams, indeed. And then we've got National Voice coming up next week.
Yeah, National Voice, the Self-Directed Support Scotland national event, which is obviously this year online, but taking place next Wednesday. So if anybody hasn't heard about that or would like to find out more, they can either go to Self-Directed Support Scotland's website or get in touch with us and we'll send them information. So it's an event with presentations and a series of workshops, so you can choose. And one of the workshops is going to be about new routes home that we're going to talk about later. So
that's a link. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else do you think we need to catch up on before we get our guests on, do you think, today?
What about you? Well, what about you this week? What have you been doing? Anything interesting?
What have I been doing? I got out of Aberdeen.
Oh yeah.
Yesterday I was helping somebody set up a Chromebook as part of the Chromebooks that we got for Connecting Scotland. And obviously some people need a bit of input to help set them up in person. Some people can manage that online, some not. So I picked them up from Granting Opportunities and delivered them one up to Huntly and helped sort of like do a wee bit of setup there. So it just felt weird to get out of the city, you know, after so long. I kept looking over my shoulder to see if I was being followed. But no, so that was good. It was good to catch up, and it's good that we're starting to get some indications of some slight easing of restrictions following the discussion with from Nicola the other day. So other stuff, my daughter turns 20. She's no longer a teenager today.
Right.
Blimey, and there's a few of us from the co-op, the Support and Wellbeing Co-op, are involved in the Climate Week Northeast on Friday. Just a little bit about sort of small local supports and how that can help. You know, just within this whole, at the moment it's all Zoom based, it all supports Zoom based, but once we go back to doing things in person, that doing things small and local can be much more sustainable than having folk driving hundreds of miles all the time.
That's an interesting thing for us to think about a lot more in the future as well, isn't it?
It is.
When we manage to get back out again, but being sure that when we do travel, we need to travel and that it's adding to what we're doing. Yeah, Climate Week Northeast. That sounds to me like 4 climates in a week, probably. Which is what we usually experience.
It's Aberdeen. It's Northeast, so it'll be definitely.
Yeah. Or is it 6 days of Arctic and then a day of some other things that happened?
It's like Billy Connolly's thing about a joke about summer. This year it was a Wednesday. Yeah,
that's it.
Okay, so that was just a little bit. If anybody wants to get involved in next week's, about any of their experiences, about whether it was good, what would help, information that they didn't get. I mean, I've heard some people talking about things like, did they get information about keeping well hydrated afterwards? Some people have said that they've been told that, others not. Also, things around about whether or not you should drink alcohol, for how long before and after. Some people have been told about that and some people haven't. So anyway.
You certainly shouldn't drink too much before, I would suggest.
No, not immediately before. Don't stagger in, you'll get into trouble.
No.
Is that your plan for
No, I'm okay.
Right, okay, let's get Fran and John on. Hi. Hello. Hello. A little bit of feedback there. Let me just.
We should let's just check who it is. Let's look up.
It's
there.
John. Right, it's John. Are you using your standard speakers there, or? Yeah. Right, it's definitely John.
That makes a change. It's usually me.
I know.
Usually, it's you, Fran.
No, that's it now.
Good.
Now, there we go. Lovely.
Yeah. Are you? And is your sound okay? Can you hear us, John?
Yeah. No.
Francis can.
I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
John? No.
No.
It looks like as soon as you switch, it gets too loud.
That's better now.
It's a bit of an issue at our end. Can I just check, John? Are you coming in via a computer or are you coming in via a phone?
Computer.
Right. If you want, you could have a quick catch up with Fran. If you've got an Android phone, if you could just use the same link on the Android phone, you usually have no problems with the phone.
Okay.
Is it okay? Right. Okay. So just these are the technical joys. Whenever we work with a different. No. Still getting a little bit of feedback there. Yeah. So Fran, you want to tell us a little bit about when you were home?
Okay. So there's a piece of work that John and I were involved in some time ago, which was to map out, I think, some of the really good practice that ourselves and lots of other people have been doing over lots of years to help people, particularly people who are seen as having a reputation, who have been, for some reason within the system, excluded from living in their own home, oftentimes taken out of the area they live in, oftentimes even further away, maybe even down south. And we did this original piece of work a few years ago, and we've republished it today with an up-to-date Scottish perspective. So it's out today, and it's a practical guide as well as helping people think about what the issues are and what some of the blocks and difficulties are. But there's a real practical side to it in terms of helping people see how it can work to help people move out of institutions, because quite often people get stuck in that cycle. They've got a reputation, and then there's a kind of belief that somehow the person that they're talking about is totally different from anybody else we've ever worked with before. And we've probably all heard that when we've done this work to try and help people get back home. Yeah, that's okay, but not for this person, because this person's something different. And that's obviously not true. And we know that, there's an equivalent person, as Mansell has said, and it's in the book, that there's an equivalent person for everybody that's in an institution living in the community, regardless of what you think in terms of the challenges. And so we wanted to provide something that says this has been done. It's been done many, many times. We know what we should be doing. We should stop doing the things that are not working and these situations. So we should, the first part of this, we should stop sending people away. We should be intervening early. We should be making sure that we're thinking about person-centred approaches early on, so that people are not being sent out of area and sent into these institutional places in the first place. But if they are there, there is absolutely, it's imperative that people get back home. And I suppose we've also been a bit worried. We know that there's been a lot of emphasis on those people, because there's been a number of reports, and the issue, I think, is the fear is as well that the pandemic might have just put such a stop even on any work that was happening. So I think we felt that publishing this guide, giving really practical ways that this happens and can happen for people, and real stories where people have actually returned to live really brilliant lives in their own homes, would be a really good time, I think, to do that. The Coming Home report came out in 2018, and there was a lot of activity around that, and there was a lot of detail, obviously, in terms of the people and where they are. But then the pandemic came not terribly long after that, and I think everything tends to feel like that might be something that is just completely left because it feels too difficult to do. And I suppose we're saying, no, that's not acceptable. And part of the publication just now is to say we need to be addressing this and dealing with this. John's back in. I'm awfully glad. Hello.
You're fine. I'm just listening.
Yeah. So just some very practical questions then. First of all, I suppose what's published through the Centre for Welfare Reform, and just if people want to get access to a copy of the guide or to see the guide, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, the Centre for Welfare Reform website. There's also the Radical Visions website. The link is going up on lots of different social media today as well. So so try out these places to find it. But we'll also be hoping that other partners will share the link as well.
Yeah, we'll hope that In Control Scotland will put it on there. Please.
Yeah, that's and obviously people can find it we put up the Radical Visions website there, and Centre for Welfare Reform. And if all else fails, people get in touch with us, and we'll be able to direct them so they can access that.
Yes.
So
it's in virtual form at the moment, isn't it? It's in virtual. It's important to see that it's not copies that we're sending out to people. It's very much about those links and finding it online at the moment. And you should be able to get access to it. But if there's any difficulty, absolutely get in touch with any of us, and we'll be able to make sure that you get a copy of it sent through, or a link to it.
And within the report as well, you've got some practical examples of some people's lives and their journeys. Is there anything particular you want to highlight from those stories?
Well, we should maybe just say that the structure of the thing is very much around the journey that someone would have to undertake, or might have to undertake, to get back home from one of these places. So we've broken it down into 5 different stages, and for 4 of those stages we give examples of what you might need to be doing. Some of those things are as old as Methuselah, aren't they? The kind of person-centered planning, service design activities, what kind of options are available around self-directed support. But we try and illustrate those things with personal stories of people that we have worked with in the past, so that what can seem a really complicated, obstacle-strewn journey is made hopefully simpler and sort of down to earth. Fran, you know a lot of the people whose stories are illustrated in the book. Do you want to say anything about that?
Well, I mean, obviously, it might be good to talk about Callum's story in particular, which is Callum's story is on the In Control website as well. It's somebody that I've known for some time and been privileged to kind of be involved in helping him and his family on the journey. But Callum's a young man, and I think his story is quite typical in a lot of ways, because he's a young man who, when things seemed to be difficult for him, and he was trying to communicate that to people in the way, he was struggling to do that, and he was doing that at an age where you're also dealing with things like, puberty and kind of growing up and all those sort of things. And through a whole set of circumstances and people not feeling able to kind of support him well, and I suppose that's what we're saying here, isn't it? Not working out how to do that. He ended up somewhere down in England, in a secure unit down in England. And then he came back up to Scotland. But even that process of bringing him back up to Scotland, he had gone into a situation which really was shared accommodation, shared staffing, a lot of staff, so 2 to 1 staff, but lots and lots of that just wasn't working for him. So I suppose what we're trying to demonstrate as well through these stories is to show that you really have to be paying attention to what's not working for people. And a lot of the time, the solutions that we think we're putting in place, like lots of staffing, or being able to kind of have more staff available at quick response time or whatever, is often still the things that are causing people lots of distress. And if you listen to Callum's story and the videos on the In Control website, he describes that really very, very clearly. So his story is really about that person-centered. It's also not, it didn't happen overnight. Everybody had to get to the same place, including, of trust that this might be the right way to provide the right support to Callum. And then I suppose that took a long time for everybody to really feel that trust that this was probably worth working towards. And what it's meant for Callum is that he used to have 2 to 1. He used to be out in some place in England, and then he was supported very intensely, which didn't work for him, and he continued to let us know that. And now he lives in his own home, and he has his own team of support, but it actually doesn't have 24-hour support. He only has 50 hours of support a week. He's a man that's getting on with his life, as his mum would say. You know, he does his own thing. He goes to the pub, he goes on holiday, he's got his own interests and desires and hopes for the future. He's been in college to do photography. He's interested in architecture. He's just a lovely young man. Now, you know, he will have had his hiccups just like everybody else, but I suppose what I feel is the strength of that is that story is not a new story for Callum. He's been now in his own home for something like 7 years. So it's that tells the story of what's possible as well. It's not, you know, it's sustainable. It's worked for him, and he's able to articulate himself some of the reasons why it wasn't probably working before, but people were unable to work out how to take those risks, how to really.
I think that's some of the stuff we've been talking about as a group for a while. Is that, as you've identified, that a lot of this stuff isn't necessarily massively new. We've got lots of really great. I'm sorry, I'm just going to mute you for a second, just Fran, just because it seems like we get feedback when somebody else is talking. So I'll make sure and put you back on. But so we've got lots of great stories from around the country, from lots of people that we've worked with, where we've got that situation where we move from a setup where people are seen as a bunch of behaviours to be managed to a human being to be understood, and then we unpick where we've got it wrong and where the system has failed folk, and then we build back in that life, and then all of a sudden, you know, over a period of time, people start to see that.
I could just say as well, part of what was at the focus of what worked for Callum was self-directed support, was creativity, was about making sure that we used the resources in ways that worked for him and made sense for him, and wasn't just about providing hours of support. And I honestly believe without that element of creativity and thinking about how to really what his outcome, what was important to him, how could we achieve that in a normal way, the same as you and I would, not just through staff that are employed to provide support, which will get absolutely essential to this picture as well. But without that, I think Callum would have struggled much more with getting more independence. But I think when he could see these things happening for him, and he talks about those things in the video, that when he could see those things happening for him, it felt safer to let go of some of that other stuff that sometimes people themselves get anxious about letting go of the staffing, you know, but it needs to be replaced by a good life. It's not just about reducing support, and his story is pretty extreme. I mean, he's living a very independent life compared to what he was in the past, and that won't be the same for everybody. Some people will have a lot of support and need that for a while, but I think, as you see, Alistair, so many people that we've worked with, it's absolutely a journey. And if you keep going in that journey, that's the other secret. The journey doesn't finish because somebody's out of an institution and living in their own home, and we've worked out how to do that. The journey starts there in terms of helping that person become more independent as time goes on. And we need to be focused on that. We need to be right from the start thinking about the good life, not just keep the person safe. If we think about the life, then actually the magic starts to happen. We need to work out to keep them safe as well, obviously. And we need to do that in partnership. That's another thing that we need to be, because we won't help people get out unless we work together, unless we trust each other, unless professionals work together. It's a massive undertaking that we need to be doing together. We can't do it in isolation. Nobody can be sitting in any one part of the system doing this in isolation.
So what that makes me think, Fran, is two things. I want to ask a question, but I just wanted to. The thing it makes me think is about the independent review, and just to put that into the language of that independent review of social care. What you're talking about is that idea of a relentless focus on achieving a good life for that person, aren't you? That's it. Relentless and resilient focus, I suppose, as well. Like, what I mean by that is one of the things that you're saying, it's not just about setting something up and then saying that's it and there we are. It's about that continuing work that you're doing, continuing review, and an opportunity to think differently, and absolutely thinking outside of the idea that this is about hours of support for. It's just about hours of support. Sorry, just to be clear about that. Can I just ask you? So the question I wanted to ask anyway, though, was relates to now, and I know that one of the things you were saying was part of the reason for publishing this new version, this new Scottish specific version just now, is in response to the pandemic and those ideas that actually, well, we can't really do anything just now. So what would you say to those people who'd say, how can we do planning when we don't know what the future is going to be like, when there's so much uncertainty around? Or how can we really do it when we can't actually get in a room as we used to have done with lots of people? So just any thoughts about those things, please?
I think this is essential work. So one of the tests at the moment, for whether you can leave your house and do things, is, are you engaged in essential work? So I think we need to be unequivocal about that. This is life and death kind of. If people stay too long in these places, then the damage just piles upon the damage already done. So we shouldn't be shy about saying this is essential work. We know from experience that during the pandemic, people have made the journey from institution to home. So we know it can be done during the pandemic, as well as it's needing to be done. And I suppose the other thing is that at the foundations, the essentials of life don't change, irrespective of the pandemic. What people need in their lives is not, before, during, and after the pandemic, we all need the same things we needed before in terms of security and love and relationships, and you could maybe argue all the more so during the pandemic. So my thoughts on it.
I think as well that we also have the same rights all the way through that.
Yeah.
Before, during, and after, as people, and those, that includes all of those people who are in that situation, which, as John says, is very serious for some people and has resulted in some, very serious outcomes for some people. And I don't think we can underestimate that in terms of being in institutions and as well. So, yeah.
So thinking about that, I think.
Finding new ways to do the planning and to think about how we get, use social this stuff. Use this stuff.
Indeed. Well, yeah.
To do the work. I mean, I think as John says, it's still happening. We've certainly had to learn how to do that differently. People that are involved have certainly had to learn, but we have, and we can, and it should not be so, because we'll find the right ways to do it. And where we've had to do with people, certainly I've continued to work with people and been in the room with people because it's essential work and it's classed as that, because it's really important once you start a process of working with somebody that process is supported and continue to be supported. You can't go, well, it's a pandemic. That's not as important now. It's not essential anymore.
Yeah, so interestingly, I'm just thinking that one of the things we've talked about is the human rights, and I guess we've part of the focus of this new website that kind of goes along with this new report is New Roots Home, which I'm just gonna put up on.
Sorry, I'm just gonna the two references that triggers off to me are, I can't remember who it was, but somebody in Waiting for Godot said the essential stays the same, right? And then Joe Strummer's biography is called The Future is Unwritten, and the future is always unwritten, isn't it? And it only becomes written when we write it and we plan in the way that you're talking about there. So those were the things that it triggered. Those were the sorts of thoughts it triggered off for me, what you've just said there. So sorry, Alistair, you're gonna also now share New Roots Home.
Yeah. So New Roots Home. So I guess, I think that as well, John, you've done some work previously as well about, focusing on a human rights approach as well within social care. And I guess that this isn't new. None of this stuff. It's a build up over years of something that works, that absolutely works. So part of the idea of New Roots Home is that we're trying to get a practical basis behind some of these ideas so that we can say, let's not just talk about it and say, wouldn't it be nice if people had, greater confidence in the system and choice, and people around them to help them to redesign things when people do get lost, because people do get lost. They do get a sense that they're drowning, that folk are saying, we can't do this. And it's not good enough to just criticize people and say, you should be doing better. We wanted to create something positive where we said, let's all get around, let's be partnerships, let's work together and say, what's it going to take to do this well locally? What's it going to take to avoid somebody losing their place and getting moved out of sight? So we've created this. I could just share the draft website just now. So it's
Alistair, I'm just thinking that's another place people should be able to find the publication.
Yes.
On the new website, isn't it? So
yeah. So this is the new website, and just checking. Oh, it hasn't started sharing. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it takes 2 shots to start sharing. I'll just try that second time. New routes home share. You get it this time?
Yeah,
looks like it's coming.
This time. Now, so one of the things I guess we should say is that we wanted to make sure that there was an easy read version about what information is, about what it's about, on from day one and right at the start, and so we've put like a little easy read guide to it, so that it's a campaign about working together with people with disabilities. It's not talking on behalf of people. They want to make sure that people's human rights are taken seriously, that sometimes folk haven't had a choice about where they live, and many have had to live in hospitals and other places they didn't choose to, and that those and other places can end up being institutions. We can have institutions in the community too, and we need to make sure that people don't lose their home, and that they don't end up in a place that they didn't choose for a long period of time, and that we can connect people together so they can work out where they want to be. And that's about how our campaign's about. So that's the easy read guide. And so there's a few pages to that website, a number of facts to do with what the campaign can offer in terms of support, how people can get involved. Does anybody else want to share any particular parts about what New Roots Home, what we're hoping to achieve with it?
I suppose just really reinforcing what you're saying, Alistair, that New Roots Home is about trying to work with people in whatever way, in a broad range of different ways, to find solutions. Really, isn't it? It's about saying, let's work together to find solutions to those situations, conditions, places that people are where they don't want to be. That mean that we do that mean that it would be great to try and find some other ways to enable that person to have a new way back to a home of their own, and to achieve those rights that like get back to those essential things. Really, that we all have a right to live in our own home and to be supported, to be safe and well in our own homes. So yeah, but it's meant to be something that offers solutions. It's meant to be a campaign that says this isn't right, but then there are ways that this can work. And it essentially, I mean, the paper that you've brought forward today is a fantastic sort of start to that way forward.
I think we need to. I think, unfortunately, there's also a kind of political dimension to the campaign, in the sense that we're looking for accountability from public bodies, from local authorities, from health services, from the government, and we've added in this version the Scottish version published today, we've added a final section which is saying, that we really need that accountability for making sure that this work gets done. So we're campaigning, as Keith says, to do this work in a particular kind of way, and we're offering solutions and all of that. But we're also saying to the bigger civic society in Scotland, you have a responsibility to work alongside us to make sure that this happens, that everyone gets back home, and also that no one gets sent away from home in future, that we need to stop that traffic, which, today, next week, next month, will still be continuing. And we need that. We always need a kind of commitment that that's going to stop. There's going to be a date beyond which that's no longer acceptable.
Yeah, that's really important. That's really important, isn't it? Because if the only attention is on this, helping people to move back home, but then there's still this isn't being addressed, which is people being sent away, or people being so it's really important that both those aspects are thought about and considered and addressed.
And I think the independent review report is encouraging. It gives us a hope that there's a policy direction here that the country will get behind. But we also have elections coming up, so we've got an opportunity to say to political parties, what's your take on this, and are you willing to back it? So as much as we don't want it to, I think we can't be shy about the political dimension either,
And there was also the mention of the Community Living Change Fund as part of the independent review, or as part of one of the outcomes of the independent review, which has already been committed to. So I think there's an amount of funding that's available to support this sort of work, specifically this work, in fact.
Yeah. Right, Fran, I think Fran's wanting to come in now.
Sorry.
God, whatever it was, it's probably gone about 10 minutes ago. You must be breathing control of the mic. Anyway, I've just seen some of the same things, actually, that there's something about one of the blocks often is about we don't have the capacity. We don't have the capacity in this local area. We don't have the resources. We're not flexible enough. And the New Roots Home group is about building that capacity. And so I think as our paper, it's really about saying there's a real practical guide to that. And I was going to mention the fund here, because that there's money available at the moment as well to build that capacity. And I think one of the problems is that it would, to me, it feels like there could be some decisions made that would change things quite quickly. So if in Scotland we decided we're not sending people out of the area, then we would come up with the solutions. We would start to work the solutions together as communities, in communities, to stop that happening. We would find the solutions, we'd find the resources, and we would do that work that we're talking about within the So there's something here about even just making some hard but clear decisions, and then the solutions will follow if we allow ourselves to be brave, really. Politically brave, as well as, brave in terms of our practice.
Well, we've got this time where we've got the review of social care, and interestingly, as we were just saying, it's coming up for election time. I just got the only election thing that I've through the door so far was from the Conservatives, and they asked I think it was about 8 different headings for priorities that they felt, which of these should be, pick up to 3 kind of thing. And NHS was one, social care was nowhere. It wasn't even, and I think that's that thing, as we've been saying, as John was saying about accountability, it's not even on the agenda, despite the fact that the Derek Feely report has just been produced. Still, folks think that it's okay to put up supporting the oil and gas industry and, green belt, but no social care, nowhere. And it's just infuriating that we can be at this stage and still this is just, like, it's not on the radar for so many people. You know what I think?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a real responsibility to try and make sure that voice is heard. We're probably at a point right now where there's a bit more room for these messages to be heard because of the Feely report, we need to try and make sure we seize that. But as you say, Alistair, that is it's the kind of invisible service that, ironically, more people in society are likely to come into contact with the social care service than the health service. It's not, but that's social care's never had that profile since the Second World War. It's the NHS and all the beverage reforms which affected social care. We need to up our game, and the politicians certainly need to improve theirs.
Yeah, but as we've said, we have reflected, haven't we, there that independent review is a hopeful. That's the word that I think about most frequently. It is hopeful because it does try to address those things that we've described there, and tries to address that idea that social care is a burden and that we can't afford it, really.
That's right.
This is an investment. This is investment in all our futures.
And he's saying we can't afford not to. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There's also something about the pandemic, isn't there, that we've got to remember that there was a lot of more focus on social care than there's been in the public domain. When there's been, I don't know, in my history of working in this sector. So I think there's something here about how do we make sure that people don't lose that sense of how important that work is and how important the people are that do that work, and how to value the people that need the support, or anybody that needs help and support within our society, because there's almost an opportunity to capture. There's been more awareness, I think, through the pandemic, and that's quite quickly can just be lost. Aware of the work that people have been doing in social care as well as the health service, I think.
Yeah. Okay, good, very good. Okay, so we're nearly at our time for this week's session. Just some final things that you'd want to share with people. Just any final things about today's launch of the report. Anything that you think, if you take away anything from hearing about this, what would it be?
It's entirely doable. And we have been doing it for since the mid-90s at least, and even before then in some individual situations. So here's just a reminder of how to do it and why it's really important to do it.
I would say as well, don't get stuck by I think what happens is people focus on the worry and the risk issues and get really stuck when they're talking about something where that might be something that they're focusing on, instead of really focusing on the good life and the future. And so they don't do that. And without doing both, then you won't move from being stuck on the risk. You've got to look at people as a whole and think about their life and their future and what they want. And we've got to do that work as well as thinking about the risk, not just thinking about the risk. I think that's where people get really stuck. And everybody just talks about that stuff all the time and how to keep the person safe or whatever it is, instead of really thinking about the person and the future and doing those bits of work together. You need to do it together.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah. So some of that is then about developing capacity and developing confidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
John's was about confidence. It's entirely doable. But also it's about that capacity, developing that capacity in every area of Scotland, really, isn't it? It's in every place, in every community, in every area, the belief and the capacity to actually have the
It's also about remembering your own history. You know, like remember your own relatively recent history, professionally, socially, culturally. You know, why have we forgotten so quickly the things that we have already done? And
we shot the institutions already for a good reason, and we knew that they weren't a place where people should be living. It wasn't a home. It wasn't, and actually also knew the effect it had on people.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that you need to remember. Actually, there's a perpetuating cycle when you're in that kind of situation and that kind of environment, which can create the very things you're trying to support the person with. You're creating the circumstances that work completely against it. So all of those things, and know it, as John says, we've done it. It's not one person, it's not one story. There's so many stories across the country. We know we can do it. So why are we not just doing it?
Yeah. My takeaways would just be that thing about, as we've said, that trust stuff. I think that a lot of that fascination with the risk and the management of risk is all about control and fear. And if the fear that somebody's going to get blamed and that we're coming at it from different angles, and if we just if we can agree on the outcomes, what a good life looks like, and that we're all working towards it, then we let go. We just lose a lot of that risk fear, because we're saying there's honesty and trust, and that honesty about saying there isn't an unlimited pot of money, but we're going to use this as wisely as possible, and we're going to create that plan together. Nobody else is going to say, I own it and you have to subscribe to it. And when you do that, a lot of the stuff that we worked through in our Risk in Our Real Life sessions as well, a couple of years ago, it just melts away. You don't even have to manage it away. It just melts away naturally, because you create that trust and that you're just aligned. But we just still haven't got that, except in these pockets. You know, there's a lot of really good work going on, but it's in the face of an uphill struggle. That's just my outtake.
Okay, so those are all really interesting reflections, and I think the comments that people have said along the side have reinforced that. I was just going to say, if anybody would like to hear more about New Roots Home and the New Ways Home publication, then please come along to the National Voice next Wednesday. And the workshop is at 2:00. So there's a workshop where you can hear more, but also have an opportunity to get involved in a bit more discussion around that. Yeah.
And we'll have all our technical problems ironed out by then.
We will, yeah.
Yeah, well, as we can hear beautifully clearly now, John and Fran. So
good.
Yeah.
Apologies for that.
Thanks to both of you for coming on. It's been great catching up, and
thank you.
Looking forward to next week as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. See you next week. Okay. Thanks, then.
Bye-bye. Bye.